to Shadows in the Wild, where we lift every rock and look behind every tree to make sure that no shadow goes unseen. In the quaint town of Bernards Township, New Jersey, a sinister presence lurks amid the tranquil landscape. Whispers of a cursed tree, known as the Devil's Tree, have circulated for generations, drawing the curious and the foolhardy to its twisted branches. But those who dare to venture too close soon find themselves ensnared in a web of darkness, where the lines between reality and nightmare blur. Sarah Collins, a journalist that lived a few towns over with a penchant for the paranormal, had always been fascinated by the legend surrounding the Devil's Tree. And as a child, she heard the hushed tales of ghostly figures swinging from its branches and the eerie warmth emanating from that nearby rock. Now, as an adult, Sarah was determined to uncover the truth behind the tree's dark history. So her investigation began with a visit to the local library, where she pored over old newspapers and historical records. And the more that she read, the more unsettled she became. The tree had been the site of numerous unalivings over the years, with reports dating back to the early 1900s. The most notable story of the Devil's Tree, its gnarled branches have borne witness to dark chapters of local history, including whispered tales of KKK gatherings in the early 20th century. But on a chilly autumn night in 1972, the tree became the stage for a very real tragedy. Robert Wyckoff was a 30-year-old local man, known to friends as a quiet soul with a troubled past. Sarah said she got the chills when reading the story about how Robert's body just hung from a sturdy branch, swaying gently with the morning breeze. And right after this incident, in the days and weeks that followed, locals reported strange occurrences near Devil's Tree. Some claimed to hear agonizing cries on quiet nights. Others swore that they saw a shadowy figure swinging from its branches as well, only to vanish when approached. Intrigued and unsettled, Sarah decided it was time to visit Devil's Tree for herself. And as she approached the towering oak tree, a sense of unease just washed over her. The air seemed to grow colder with each step, and a strange stillness hung over the area. Sarah shivered, pulling her coat tighter and tighter around her body. And as she drew closer to the tree, Sarah noticed the scars that marred its trunk, deep gashes that bore witness to many attempts to cut it down. You see, local legend held that the tree was indestructible, protected by some malevolent force. Sarah ran her fingers over the rough bark, feeling a strange tingling sensation in her fingers. That's when suddenly a twig snapped behind her. Sarah spun around, her heart pounding in her chest. And there, just standing a few feet away, was a figure cloaked in a shadow. Sarah kind of squinted her eyes, trying to make out this person's features, but the darkness seemed to swallow them whole.
Who are you?
Sarah called out, her voice trembling. The figure remained silent, but slowly raised an arm, pointing towards the rock that lay nearby. Sarah's gaze followed that pointing finger, and she gasped. The rock, which should have been cold and lifeless, seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, a faint red glow emanating from its surface, casting an eerie light upon the surrounding trees. Sarah took a tentative step towards the rock, her curiosity at this point overriding her fear, and as she got closer, she felt a wave of heat kind of wash over her, as if she were standing before a roaring fire. The sensation was both terrifying and enticing, drawing her even closer to the strange phenomenon. And just as Sarah was about to lay her hand upon the rock, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air. She twirled around, her eyes wide with terror, and there, hanging from the branches of Devil's Tree, was this limp figure swaying gently in the breeze. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the face of that figure. It was her own. Panic gripped Sarah as she stumbled backwards, desperate to escape this nightmare unfolding right before her. So she turned to run, but her legs suddenly felt heavy, as if they were mirrored in quicksand, and the shadowy figure then approached, its face still obscured by the darkness.
"You cannot escape your fate,"
the figure whispered, its voice in a raspy hiss.
The Devil's Tree claims all who dare to uncover its secrets.
Sarah's scream was caught in her throat as the figure reached out, and its icy fingers closing around her wrist. She felt a searing pain as if the touch itself was burning her skin. The world around her began to spin, the colors blurring together like a dizzying kaleidoscope. And then she saw a man run up to her and push her as hard as he could, and then everything
went black.
When Sarah finally woke up, she found herself lying on the ground, the Devil's Tree looming right over her. She sat up, her head throbbing in pain. As she looked around, she noticed something very strange. The rock that had been once glowing with an otherworldly energy now lay cold and lifeless. Sarah then stumbled to her feet, her mind reeling with questions. Had it all been a dream? A hallucination? She glanced down at her wrist, expecting to see the mark left by that shadowy figure's touch. But her skin was unblemished, showing no sign of the searing pain that she felt. And it was then that Sarah noticed the newspaper clipping lying on the ground beside her. So with trembling hands, she picked it up. Her eyes widened as she read the headline, "Local man found dead at the Devil's Tree." The article went on to describe how this man's body had been discovered, hanging from the branches of the cursed tree, his face frozen in a mask of terror. And as Sarah read on, a chilling realization dawned upon her. The date on the newspaper was from 2 years ago, and it was about the man who died there, named Robert Wyckoff. The picture of Robert, she said, was the exact same man that pushed her right before everything went black. Could he have saved her from the Devil's Tree when it attempted to literally take her soul as well? So she looked up at the Devil's Tree, its branches swaying still gently in the breeze, and felt a cold sense of dread wash over her. For Sarah Collins, the truth behind the Devil's Tree had come at a terrifying price. She had thought she was the victim there for a moment and would forever be trapped in the cycle of death and despair that had claimed the life before her. But as she stood there, the newspaper clipping clutched in her hand, Sarah knew that she had uncovered a truth that was never meant to be discovered. The Devil's Tree, with its twisted branches and otherworldly rock, held secrets that were best left buried. But for Sarah, luckily it wasn't too late. She had dared to uncover the tree's dark history, and now she would leave not only with a story, but with a haunting encounter. And as the sun began to set over Bernard's Township, Sarah Collins took a deep breath and left Bernard's Township, never to return, because in her mind she literally cheated death, something that couldn't be said for Robert Wyckoff. Sarah swears that Robert was the man that pushed her right before she blacked out. And she says that right before that is when she literally saw herself dangling from the tree. So did Robert, in an act of otherworldly favor, push her back into this realm instead of taking her to the other? That's for you to decide. I hope you enjoyed episode 2 of Shadows in the Wild. That's all I got for you guys, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.